You know, when it comes to anime content here on YouTube, I find that movies often get kind of overlooked. But I want to do something about that, which is why I've started a project where I'll be watching almost 200 anime movies, some of which were even recommended by you. I'm gonna analyze their strengths and weaknesses and then figure out which ones are worth watching and which should be skipped. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Anime Top Scholars Cinema. The first movie on the list, and subject for this video, is a 2024 movie called Look Back. Now, before we jump in, I just want to warn you that I will be talking about this movie in full. So if you don't want spoilers, then check the description for chapters, so you can avoid the spoiler sections. Anyways, let's talk Look Back now. Alright, so like I said, the first movie we're going to be tackling on this journey is Studio Durian's 2024 drama movie Look Back. This manga and otaku culture themed film clocks in at just under 1 hour and was produced in collaboration with Shueisha's Weekly Shonen Jump. It is based on a one-shot manga by Tatsuki Fujimoto, who you might recognize as the man behind Fire Punch and of course Chainsaw Man. So no wonder that this movie ended up getting a lot of attention. Now, the director responsible for this film is Kiyotaka Oshiyama, who also served as a character designer and screenplay writer. But that's enough background. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. The story. So, what is this movie about? Well, obviously it's about making manga. Look Back gives us a look into the life of Ayumu Fujino, an elementary schooler with a talent for drawing. She also makes 4-koma-style manga for the school newspaper. She's lauded for her artistic skills and ability to churn out manga on a weekly basis, though the reality is that her art is a bit simplistic. One day, however, Fujino is asked to give up one of her strips to a younger kid named Kiyomoto. She is a shut-in who, due to her crippling social anxiety, never comes to school. Fujino ends up agreeing to it even though she's not thrilled about it, but she expects whoever this kid is to not have the skill that she does. However, to her surprise, it turns out that Kiyomoto's art is extremely good. Specifically, her background art is of much higher quality than Fujino's. This leads Fujino to obsess over improving her own art and spends the next year trying to catch up to this unknown girl. But she fails to improve enough, and having spent so much time basically alienating her friends and family, she gives up and resumes her social life and passion for sports. But one day she's tasked with going to Kiyomoto's house to hand her the graduation diploma. Unsurprisingly, the reclusive girl doesn't answer or come out to see her, so she leaves the diploma in the hallway. But out of curiosity, and because the door is unlocked, Fujino goes in and sees all the sketchbooks laying around. And as a bit of a stick to this girl, she grabs some 4-koma paper and draws a quick sketch mocking the recluse, which she then drops, and it perfectly flies under the crack in the door to Kiyomoto's room. Horrified and extremely embarrassed, Fujino runs out of the house, but surprisingly, Kiyomoto comes running after her. And even more of a surprise, she says that she is a huge fan of Fujino's 4-koma, and that she is the one who inspired her to make manga. So, suddenly being hit with the realization that Fujino-sensei has a fan, she does what anyone would in this situation: give Kiyomoto an autograph. And lie about having quit making 4-koma because you're working on a manga that will enter into a competition. Thankfully, Kiyomoto buys this excuse, and the two girls end up partnering up for the manga competition, with Fujino drawing characters and churning out the story, while Kiyomoto does the background art. Their contribution ends up actually doing really well in the competition, getting the runners-up prize and winning a decent bit of money for it. So with this in mind, the two girls decide to pursue becoming a mangaka. Now with a goal in mind, they spend the next few years churning out one-shots that end up getting featured in the magazine Weekly Jump. They're doing so well in fact that the editor they're talking to says they have more than met the requirements for serialization. They just have to graduate high school first. But when they do, Kiyomoto hits Fujino with a heavy blow. She wants to study art to improve even more, so she wants to go to an art school instead of becoming a mangaka. Fujino's not happy about this and makes sure to tell her younger assistant that she is taking on a challenge that she cannot overcome with her social anxiety, and that she is basically destroying her future, since an art degree means nothing in the real world when it comes to getting jobs. But despite this, Kiyomoto stands by her decision, and Fujino decides to tackle serialization on her own, with the help of assistants provided by the company. Now as a serialized mangaka in Weekly Jump, with a pen named Kiyo Fujino, her manga Shark Kick ends up doing really well, publishing 11 tankobon volumes, and even getting an anime adaptation greenlit. However, suddenly her world is about to be turned upside down. While working on her manga, she's got the news on, which tells us that a deranged man with a pickaxe has attacked Tohoku University of Art and Design, killing several students and injuring more. This is the same university that Kiyomoto is studying at. In a panic, Fujino tries calling Kiyomoto's phone, but no one answers. And as if it couldn't get any worse, only minutes after, Fujino's own mother calls her, letting her know that Kiyomoto was one of the students that ended up getting killed by the deranged and rampaging man who was accusing the art school of stealing his ideas and artwork. Completely distraught, Fujino blames herself for the unfortunate fate of her friend, saying that this only happened because she helped Kiyomoto come out of her shell. If only she had stayed a shut-in and never dreamt of going to university, this never would have happened. Spotting the mocking forecoma she drew many years ago when the two first met, she tears it up in a rage. But one of the pieces ends up falling and slipping under the door. And just like that, we're now in an alternate universe where Kiyomoto only receives this ripped forecoma. Now in this timeline, Fujino shows up to deliver the diploma at Kiyomoto's house, but this time leaves straight away. The two never meet and never end up becoming partners. However, Kiyomoto is still inspired by Fujino's forecoma, still decides to take up art, and still ends up breaking out of her shell to go to university and study art. The deranged man still shows up and still attacks her. However, this time, Fujino, who's now also going to university for athletics and is taking karate, by chance happens to be out running and spots the would-be assailant. She somehow takes down the attacker before he can hurt anyone, but ends up breaking her foot in the process. The two girls get to talking, with Kiyomoto still revealing that she was a fan of Fujino's manga in the past, and Fujino admits that she's been taking up drawing again. And this is where we end up getting dragged back into the original timeline. Now back in Kiyomoto's room in the reality in which she's passed, Fujino spots both the hoodie that she signed when they first met, but also all of the volumes of Shark Cake that's released, as well as reader surveys which she wrote in support of her friend. So despite the fact that their lives ended up pulling them in different directions, Kiyomoto still loved Fujino's manga and supported her all the way. And with Fujino still in despair and complaining about how much she hates drawing, she ends up hearing Kiyomoto's voice asking her a question. And with that, she remembers all the good times the two shared. How making manga brought them together, and reminding her how genuinely happy Kiyomoto was to be able to read her manga and gain a friend who helped her come out of her shell a bit more. So with this newfound motivation, Fujino returns to the office, finally having come to terms with Kiyomoto's death, and sits down to continue working on her manga. And with Kiyomoto's own forecoma hanging above her workstation, she sets out to ensure that she will not disappoint her biggest fan. Wow, that ended up becoming a whole lot heavier than I originally thought when checking this movie out. But as you could tell, there's more than just a few themes at play here. So let's take a look at that and see what this movie is actually about. So the most obvious theme is that of the love of creativity, being that this is based on a one-shot by the Chainsaw Man mangaka and made in collaboration with Shueisha, making manga is obviously a focal point of the story. This movie wants to highlight that art, creativity, and making manga is worth something. It's not just a waste of time, and actually has meaning. Not just to the person who makes the manga, but also to the people who read them. Their stories can inspire others to become more creative. You can also extrapolate that to other creative fields as well. Another theme is that of coming of age, or of growing up and all the challenges that come with it. As a child, you have your whole future ahead of you. You can pick up any hobby and basically just explore your own curiosity as much as you want. But depending on what your interest is, as you grow older, you can find that others start to judge you more. Some things are expected to just be phases you grow out of because they're childish. We see that with how some of Fujino's friends start saying they find it weird how a girl who's entering middle school is still reading and drawing manga, or how her family feels like she's wasting her life spending time drawing in her room. As a man in his 30s who's still watching cartoons, I feel this quite strongly. Many find it weird because they can't understand how something like animated characters and stories can be appealing to someone who's not of single-digit age. But a part of growing up is about not caring about what everyone else says, and instead focus on what you want to do and what you enjoy. There's always plenty of people who will tell you what you should do, but only you know what is best for yourself. But don't let that absorb you. Another part of growing up is that you need to learn to balance what you want to do with the things you need to do. The final theme I want to focus on is that which was showcased with the separate realities. I'm of course talking about your ability to change mistakes of the past. Or rather, lack of ability to change it. You see, one of the weirdest aspects of this movie is that out of nowhere we're suddenly introducing an alternate timeline. It's not exactly graceful, but I still feel like it serves an important purpose. You see, it's not about being able to travel to a different reality with a different outcome. It's more a sign of wishful thinking, wanting to have your cake and eat it too. Fujino essentially wishes for a reality in which Kiyomoto didn't die, her swooping in as the hero and for them to still meet and become friends. But that's not the reality that we're faced with here. This isn't a manga with a hero who will come in and everyone now gets to live happily ever after. This is real life, and your actions have consequences. But the most frustrating of all is that there's so much that's just out of your hands, especially in regards to other people. Here in reality, Kiyomoto did die, and nothing is going to change that. So all Fujino can do is cherish the moments they did have together, and move on, knowing that she ultimately had a positive impact on Kiyomoto's life. And that is often the most difficult part. So now we've come to the section of the video that people actually care about. The part where I tell you if this is a good movie or not. And long story short, this is a very good movie. But it also has some issues. But first, let's focus on what it does well. This movie does a very good job of building the friendship of the two main characters over the short runtime. After quickly establishing both characters' main personality, with Fujino having an extroverted and outgoing personality with multiple talents, and Kiyomoto being a shy, closed-off person who hyper-focused on one area to get really good at that. And just like that, they've established why these characters can work together, since their strengths complement each other. It also helps us quickly move on from Kiyomoto being a fan to being a friend. Secondly, I really like that instead of turning this into a story of an alternate timeline so that we can get to the good ending, it instead chooses to pull back on that and focus on remembering the good parts and accepting what's happening and taking that with you as you go on with your own life. It's a very strong message and one that circumvents a more escapist kind of conclusion that they easily could have chosen instead. So I commend them for not doing that. Lastly, I also like that the movie decided to split up the two characters. At a certain point, they have to make a choice. One wants to be a mangaka and make money on her passion, while the other wants to pursue their passion for art and improve their skills beyond just drawing backgrounds for manga. This leads Fujino to feel like she's losing control over her assistant, losing her edge in making manga, and feeling like she's getting betrayed, which makes her say some pretty nasty stuff to her friend. But in that, we also see that Kiyomoto has grown enough as a character to still decide to pursue what she wants to do, even if it's not what her friend wants for her. It shows a level of character growth that's a nice touch for such a short movie. Now we need to talk about the flaws though. One of those issues is the runtime. You see, this movie clocks in at just under 1 hour in length, but it also spans quite a long time frame, starting with the two girls in primary school and ending once they've graduated high school and entered college/work. Because of this, we kinda skip through a lot of stuff, and most of the groundwork for the two characters' friendships and happy moments together are shown to us through a collage with still images and happy music. Don't get me wrong, it still works, so it's not a massive issue. However, when the reveal that Kiyomoto has died comes around, it doesn't really hit as hard as it could have had we actually spent more time with the two characters hanging out together. Instead, it kind of ends up feeling a little out of left field, cause nothing up until this point has indicated that this is that kind of story. And when you then immediately get dragged into an alternate timeline, you start fearing that we're gonna have some kind of timeline shift bullshit going on, and that we're now chasing a happy ending for the sake of a happy ending. Thankfully, that didn't happen though. Another issue I have with this movie comes from the fact that I feel like the two girls going from amateur mangaka to getting serialized in Jump was just a little bit too smooth. Don't get me wrong, I have no issue with them getting a runners-up award in their first ever entry into a competition, nor do I have any issue with Fujino getting her manga serialized as soon as she is able to. But I wish we would have seen a little bit more of the struggle of her suddenly having to deal with working on a serialized manga without the help of her friend and background artist. Instead, we just get another quick montage of Shark-Kick's rankings in the magazine, fluctuating until it eventually reaches number 1, and a scene where Fujino tells her editor she's a little bit unhappy with her new assistant, but we don't really ever get much of an indication as to why that is. All in all, I don't have many major issues with it, but there are a few small things here and there that I feel could have made the movie even better than it already is. But yeah, overall, I think it's a good movie. Absolutely worth a watch if you haven't already seen it. It's short and sweet and delivers some genuinely good points about growing up and about pursuing your passion. But at the same time, it doesn't delve too far into glorification of pursuing manga as a job or art as a passion. It's not all just roses and sunshine. There's gonna be some rain along the way as well. For some, more than others. But just because things might not work out for you, that doesn't mean there aren't other ways or other alternatives. And as long as it's something you're passionate about, there is nothing wrong with continuing to do it as a hobby. So all that said, I highly recommend this movie. And there you have it. That was Look Back, the first entry on my long list of movies to watch and talk about. So before we end, I just want to add a few points about this project of mine. I'm not going to review every movie on this list as a single entry. Some movies are part of a movie series, so in that case I will put them all together and talk about them as a combined package. And even if a prequel movie isn't on the list, it will almost certainly be a part of the video when I'm talking about it. I also might not talk about every single movie on the list, because if I genuinely just have nothing to say in regards to the movie, I won't try to force out a video where I basically say nothing about it. Now, if you want to actually see the list of movies I'm gonna watch, whether to get some inspiration for what to watch yourself, or if you want to be prepared for what I'm gonna be making videos on in the future, you can find the list linked on my Discord. Link to that in the description of this and all of my other videos. And while you're at it, leave a like on this video and subscribe as well so you don't miss another upload from me. Until next time, peace.